How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine.
Just fine? You have a book like this and you're just fine? Heck no, you should be holly jolly. Ho, 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 ho.
Yes, it's the right. It's the right time of the year.
When you write a book called Entering Christmasville, I mean, this, the thing that I did as a reader is right away I'm going, wow, the term home has a new definition. And what does it mean to you now that you're older? Because as children, home is a house, but as an adult, home is home.
Yeah. Yes. And which kind of home? And if you look at the big
That's
perspective,
right.
it can mean many different things, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say in the story. I think doing genealogy has made me look at the long perspective about our lives are very short, and also I really discovered in doing the work that I did that life. And it seems like the world is a big place, but it's really a small place.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic, but I just 2 years ago I discovered that my ancestors were actually one of the people that founded Plymouth, Massachusetts Bay Colony.
Wow.
And I didn't know that till a couple of years ago. And it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew that when I was a kid. History would have been interesting to me. But you know what I mean? But those people, and if you watch like the Roots show, they'll have those actors on and they'll go, oh, guess what? You have a fellow actor that's, your relative. And that's when I realized the world really is a small place. That's what doing genealogy has taught me, and how we treat each other is so important.
You talk about how short life is. I've been a daily writer since July of 1994, and you would think that, wow, 29 years of writing, there should be a lot of things. There's not. 29 years of writing is not very, very many books at all.
No, it is interesting, isn't it? And so, yeah, and I know, like, I wish I had stories from my ancestors, but they didn't get passed down, did they?
No.
All that rich history. If I had just a single page written about it, it would be amazing, but it was not passed down. And it's funny how you go through your life and it seems kind of insignificant, and you get caught up with the daily routine of things, and you don't take time to leave a written record. But it just means so much to the people that that you leave behind, to have something to it's like kind of a marker, and it's really about you because you've got their DNA.
Yep. When you study family history like that, I mean, one of the things that I'm taking note of with modern day AI technology is how they can put motion in those ancient black and white photographs. Is that fair to us to see that? I mean, how do you feel in situations like that? Because I mean, in my home, we've got really old photographs of my wife's father, but it would be fascinating to see that photograph move.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's great. Anything you can do to make things more real. Well, I think about Natalie Cole. She would she didn't have her dad, but then she made a record with a duet, and then she made a video.
Yep.
And it had to be very cathartic for her to reach out to him in that way, and to feel his presence. And that's why I say, when you're writing, and I think that's wonderful with the pictures, anything to make things come alive. What I always loved was that movie Time Machine. And ever as a kid, I thought, oh man, I wish I could go back in time and see things. What really happened here? What was it really like when George Washington crossed the Delaware? Because we know there's stuff we don't know.
Yep.
It got forgotten. And so that's kind of where I come from whenever I'm thinking about any stories. I've already spent an enormous amount of time trying to gather all the evidence I can, and then try to put it down in a story to make something come alive, to make history come alive.
Mm-hmm. In a story, Entering Christmasville, Nettie Holmes is a very creative soul, but she also has a very personal life.
Yes, she does. And then her daughter, she adopted her daughter, so she has a lot of love to give.
Mm-hmm. But
you sense there's an emptiness there, a loneliness that you just don't know what that's about. And she just loved her daughter Noel. But I did one of my friends. I did her genealogy, and I always wanted to do someone who was adopted, because it scared me, and I didn't know if I could do it. But it was very interesting getting the non-identifying information and then trying to figure that out. And with Nettie, she wants to find that information. And the people who are looking for their biological parents have an anxiety about it, such an anxiety, because they want to know, was I abandoned?
Right.
Or was I loved? What were the circumstances? It's just very human that you want to know. And there's just so much tension about that. And my girlfriend, and it's a timeline too. There's a timeline because that person could be dead.
Yeah.
If you wait too long, they could be gone. And that's kind of what's in the story with the mother and daughter. That she's very, she loved her mother, but she just got to know the answers to these questions, and it creates a tension between the two women, and a bit of a distance.
Yeah, but that distance, so is like you have that. Don't you have to refocus your thought process? I understand that Noel wants to go back and find out who her parents are, but at the same time, you've got to be able to love within the moment with Nettie and everything, because you can't let that go.
No, but it is interesting because for a while you have to go to that other place.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I don't know, when you're acting and you're studying a part, you really aren't much part of the world that's really going around you, because you got to just envelop yourself in another person and be there. And once you get used to it, then it's okay. And then if everybody gets along, great. Then you got a bigger family. But it may just be a temporary thing. And sometimes you feel an anxiety that you've got to learn all you can.
Doesn't entering Christmasville kind of inspire the reader to maybe do their own investigating inside their family? Because I know nothing about my family. I really don't. And the reason why because I know my grandparents came from Germany. Yes, we had a great time as a family, but anything before that, it's like, am I supposed to know? And what am I doing so that somebody in the future will know about me? And that's the reason why I'm a daily writer. A, so I don't forget my life, and B, so that someone has something in the future.
That is it. You know what? And I remember my grandmother taking me through books, picture book that she made of her family. And of course, in the old days, so many people died. You might have 5 children, and you're left with maybe 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. And then their stories, and it's like they're forgotten, and that bothers me. I don't like people to be forgotten,
right? Because
I don't want to be forgotten, and I felt so lonely as a child. We had a home life that could be fun, but there was also, punctuated by violence. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And it's really hard to overcome that mentally. You feel unloved, and I don't want for people to feel that way.
With Noel, when she starts digging into things and she starts finding some buried history, it reminds me right away. I'm going, wow, how much of the family tree is based on hearsay and not physical facts? Because Noel is getting some physical things here.
Yeah. It's piecing it together. And, my mother was an illegitimate child. And she was told that her father was in the ward and he was married in our parish, and that it was that he was married. So she was never told. And 4 people knew who her father was all around us, and nobody gave up that secret. Very powerful secret. Things were different in the old days. And she used to sit in the back of the church. She would tell me, I just watched people leave and I'd see who I thought I looked like. And when it came down the end, because of DNA, we found him. And he was all around us, but he was not in our parish, but our cousins were. So there were connections, and they were all around us, and we didn't even know. And, it's just kind of sad that it happened like that, but there aren't secrets. People had secrets, and they kept secrets back then. There's no secrets anymore with DNA.
Right. That's so interesting you bring that up, because about 10 years ago, we gotten word that there was somebody that was in the Chicago area that looked pretty much like my sister and I. And so my sister went looking for it, and it turned out to be from my father's other family. And it was a sister.
Oh.
And so, and to this day, Jamie and I are like, it's like, what? We come from 2 different families, but we're from the same guy.
Yeah. Crazy.
It is crazy, but once again, it's all based on hearsay, her version of the story versus my version of the story, and we crash. And that's why books like this are so important, that people take them in and really study the word home.
Yes, and it's Christmas, and Christmas is about love and home. That's ultimately what it's about, not the presents and all the other stuff. It's about being together. And that's why I always like the Grinch story that we grew up with when we were kids, and it's amazing. you can take away all that stuff, but you're not going to take away the spirit of someone. Or you see that in people that lived through the Holocaust, and yet they came out, and they're really tortured inside about many, many things, but they go out and live a very productive life and move forward with, positivity. And it's amazing how resilient people can be.
Yeah. Where along the lines did you realize that you were going to make this a multi-generational book in the way that, because there aren't too many stories like this. And I think that's very inspiring for a lot of people. It's like, wow.
Oh, thank you.
Because we could talk about my grandmother. We could talk about my mother. We could talk, it's just amazing on how evenly balanced this story is.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, well, I think, women usually are the people who keep the stories. Not always, but women have so many feelings, about these things. And, in my experience collecting genealogy, the men usually aren't the least bit interested, but there are men who are. And that's what I found out about my book. Once I started selling it, I thought, well, I was writing a women's story, kind of. I felt my audience was women. But I found out otherwise. I mean, there's, guys working out at the gym, probably those kind of workout rats probably aren't going to be interested in the book. But men who believe in their faith and are more tender like that, they just wrote back and they told me they love my story.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I did not expect that, but it is true. And there's a lot of men who do genealogy too. And it's funny the stuff that can happen in a story. I mean, it's like reading it. You couldn't make it up in a screenplay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some of real life is way better than something you're just going to just make up.
So true.
And when I started when I was 15 doing genealogy, and my great great grandfather was in the Civil War, all the way up through his unit was up through Gettysburg. And he was wounded at Chancellorsville. But anyway, the thing was, I thought he was a hero. And I just oh, man, I got to know more about him. And then, as it turned out, later in life, I found two elderly relatives. They were each 97 years old and in a nursing home. And I went to see if they had perfectly sharp minds. And they said, yeah, did you notice that? Well, first of all, I found out that one of the relatives said, did you know that my family murdered somebody in your family?
Whoa.
And I'm like, what? And so the man who was in the Civil War, one of his daughters was murdered. And so and what happened was they said that on his deathbed, when that guy was dying, he said, I don't want to die. I'm scared. I'm scared. And his wife said, what are you scared about? You're going to go see God. It's all going to be all right. Just be at peace. He goes, no, that's just it. I don't want to see God. I murdered your sister.
Oh.
And she was 8 months pregnant and no one knew. And then he turned around and married her sister.
Wow.
And so anyway, as it turned out, I found these other two ladies that were, 97.
Yeah.
And the last one said, did you notice that nobody in the family knows about Charles? And I said, yes. I talk to people and they go, there's no Charles in the story. And I go, yeah, I know I am. I descended from him. And he goes, no, there's no Charles in our book of names, as he's not even in there. And I just was baffled by that. She said, did you notice that his name is I said, yes, that did come up and I don't understand. She said, well, that's because he was molesting his own daughter. And then she got pregnant and he married her off. Then I knew why he killed her.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
No.
He probably figured out that's not his baby.
Yep.
And he poisoned her with arsenic. And so if that's a horrible long death and you're 8 months pregnant, horrible. Anyway, yeah, you just never know. And, I don't know how much time we have, but I remember when Ted Turner did that series on the Civil War on Gettysburg.
Yes.
And he was going to do 3. He did Gods and Gods and Generals or something. Anyway, and that was the second one. And then he was going to do a third one, but he never did. And it was going to be the last full measure. That was actually the story about my ancestors' time in the Civil War. And there's the man whose diary they took. Oh my gosh, they based it off this diary that he wrote, and he was an amazing diary, and he was such a wonderful man. and he couldn't be more different than my ancestor. You know, when I would read clips in there that, some people are grumbling and they're unhappy. I thought, that was probably my ancestor then, I suppose. But it was very funny. He tells a story about one day he got leave in Washington, D.C., and he thought, I'm going to walk over and stand on the White House lawn so I can tell my parents I stood on the lawn. You know, they'll be so excited. And he said, I was standing there, and all of a sudden the front door opened, and it was Abraham Lincoln, and he came out and picked up a newspaper.
Wow.
And he was just standing there. He was just in awe. It's like, oh, my gosh, he came out, picked up the newspaper, and Abraham Lincoln waved to him, and he said, what unit are you in? And he said, oh, the 1st Minnesotas. Oh, they're the best fighters we've got. And, yeah, he talked to him for a few minutes. He said, now, young man, I got to go in. I got a lot to do. And he goes, okay. And he was leaving the White House. He threw his hat in the air and he was yelling like, yippee. He said, I can't believe I'm going to be able to tell my family I met Abraham Lincoln. And, you know, even though my ancestor was a disappointment, I love that man. And I always wanted to do a story of it. So I thought it was funny that Ted Turner never did do it, because I'd love to do that story.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Wow.
So, you know, real life is so much more interesting. And even though my characters are fictional, it's really kind of based on my work doing genealogy.
Yep.
So when I was a kid, we'd drive up to Elkport, and that's where my ancestor was from. And he went to that church that I have pictured in the book. And that's the only thing that really survived the tearing down of the town. There was a flood, and so that's why Elkport is a ghost town, because they tore everything down. But some of the local people saved the church. Wow. And it's a beautiful little church. And I just had so many fond memories of going there as a young person and tromping through the cemeteries. And, you know, it was all different before Roots.
Yep.
Yeah, Roots changed everything. And then Centennial came out. And that's when I really knew I wanted to be a writer. So I thought I want to take all of my genealogy and write a story, a sweeping story like, say, Centennial. And I thought I was very inspired by that. So I got on the board of a historical society at one point, and then I started writing these cemetery tours as a fundraiser. And it was really interesting because I have a kind of a film background, and I've written screenplays. I knew how to do it because I lived it. So I just wrote a whole story where small groups would come up and they meet at a grave, and someone would tell a story, and then we'd reenact scenes with stagecoaches and antique fire engines and all kinds of fun stuff. It was a fun community project, and that's how I found my voice. Wow. Was doing all those. Before then, I was very insecure, and then I didn't think I could do it. Yep. When I started this book, I actually Richard Paul Evans is my mentor. And yeah, he's a tremendous man. Well, he's known as the king of self-publishing, and he started with the Christmas box, and that became a movie with Maureen O'Hara and Richard Thomas. And I always loved that story. So I thought, you know what? I want to read the book. It's one of my screenwriting friends. You should write a book and then write the screenplay. You'll make a lot more money. Yeah. And so I always had that on my mind. And so I thought, you know what? I need to keep reading books and comparing them, see how you adapt stories, things like that. So anyway, I went ahead and purchased the book, and then there was a button there. It said, do you want to follow the author? I thought, well, I need to learn about this technology. And I thought, yeah, what the heck? Let's follow him and find out what he does, how he uses it, you know, the internet and such. And so I clicked on it, and about 3 weeks later, he sent out emails to everybody and said, I'm starting a new writing class, and we'd like you to join. And it was very inexpensive, too. Wow. It's like $16 a month.
Wow.
And we have weekly meetings, and we read to each other and give each other feedback. And then we have other classes where Richard comes on and teaches us marketing. And, you know, I mean, it's just amazing. And you know what? 10 months later, I had a book. It was done.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Where can people go to find out more about you, Patricia? Because this is book one of a series of ghost towns. So I want people to follow you because, I mean, you're going to probably take every bit of those lessons you've learned, and you're going to teach future writers as well.
Yes, I am. And I want to create a podcast, too, about history, like Profiles in Courage. Mm-hmm. I love that series. And I want to redo my Pint-Sized Pioneer program so that people can use it or download it and use it too. I'm on my book is for sale on Amazon and Books A Million. And you can go on my Facebook page. It's PM Boardman Author. and you can contact me there. And if you want an autographed copy, you can contact me from there, and I'll mail it to you personally. So anyway, that's how you would contact me. And thank you so much for letting me come on.
Absolutely, because I expect to talk to you when book 2 is ready to go. I don't want to rush you, but we're going to have to get it booked.
No, it's going to be about Utah. The next story is going to be set in Utah,
nice.
in a ghost town is a mining town during the Depression.
Wow, that's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good one. Well, excellent.
Thank you so much. Well, I love your energy.
You be brilliant today, okay?
I will. Thank you.